Yeah, that's the outro. Okay,
All right,
we're doing
so we're just gonna get started here.
We're gonna do great.
All right. Well, greetings everybody. Welcome once again to the Rec Poker Podcast. Our official sponsor, as always, is Running Aces Racetrack Casino and Hotel, and our other sponsors are Learn Pro Poker and Website Amp. And in this chats edition of the podcast, we're going to hang out with Dutch Boyd, a three-time World Series of Poker bracelet winner. Got a great story. Excited to dig into that with him. But first, let's introduce the panel. My name is Steve Fredland. I go by Rec Poker Steve in the Poker Stars home game. Reminding you what Rick Bennett said, that in the long run, there's no luck in poker, but the short run is longer than most people know.
Nice. I'm Andrew Feist. I am dealer 412 at the home game. Because of the Packer win yesterday, we're going to go with Vince Lombardi. The only place success comes before work is in the dictionary.
And I'm Chris Jones. I'm 5x5 on Twitter in the Poker Stars home game. And I'm thinking that I might need to have a second username, which is 7x8 suited, but we'll see someday.
Hi, my name is Jim Reed. I'm Bluff Sterini in the home game. And I just want to tell you the game selection is half the game.
And I'm John Somsky. I'm Poker Geek MN everywhere. And I have a quote from Grantland Rice. It's not whether you won or lost, but how many bad beat stories you were able to tell.
And I'm Rob Washam, Radman50 Poker Stars on Twitter. And when we get back to live poker, just remember, nobody cares what you folded.
Right. All right. Good stuff. A couple quick things before we jump in. We'll talk about this more after the conversation with Dutch, but real quick, International Series is jumping Fridays, 5 a.m. and noon Central Time. We are expanding our OPA Invitational to every week. If you're a premium member, you play the home game. We got cool people stop by and chat with us. Last week, Dutch Boyd, Matt Hunt stopped by. We've had Moneymaker, Maria Ho, and several others. And if you're not a paying member, fear not. We do use Discord, and we've just added a couple of voice channels. So you can jump on there anytime you're playing a home game, or if you want to talk about the NFL or whine about the Vikings or whatever it is that you want to do. So with that, let's bring him in. Mr. Dutch Boyd, welcome to the Rec Poker Podcast, sir.
Thanks for having me on. Pleasure to be here, Steve.
Now, for those of us who are watching this on video, we see the palm tree behind you and blowing and all that stuff. Where are you actually calling in from?
I'm calling in from the beautiful sandy beaches of Missouri right now.
It looked just like Missouri. I think I maybe see the arch there in the background. Well, thanks again for jumping on here. I know you jumped on our Zoom call recently when we were playing and hung out with the folks, and they just had a blast doing that. So there's so many things that we could talk about. I kind of want to start with a little bit of your history. Inspired by the movie Rounders, right? Is that kind of how you got into poker?
That's exactly how I got into poker. I'd never played a hand before Rounders of Texas Hold'em. I played a little bit of like 5-card draw around some kitchen tables with grandparents, but yeah. So I was in law school my third year, and I went to a dollar show. And I didn't even know what Rounders was. I'd never seen the trailer or anything. I mean, that movie must have gone like wide release straight to video in like record time, because I had no idea what I was going into. We just like, there were two options. So we saw them both, and I'm sitting there with a law school buddy, and there it is, listen, here's the thing. And from that moment on, I was hooked, absolutely hooked. And I didn't know this until recently. So the release date of Rounders was September 11th, 1998. So every year when September 11th rolls around, there's a few things that are happy to celebrate as well. And that that's one of them. Rounders is now 22 years old. 22.
Yeah. So that makes you about 40 then. We've just done the math on you.
That's all right.
So I'm curious, like, what it was about Rounders, like having not played, like, what was it, do you think, that hooked you?
I don't know. I wish I could go back and tell you why that movie just captured me so much.
because I wonder if it was like the game or like the the environment or the psychology. Yeah, maybe you just have no way of knowing, I guess.
Just the idea that that the same five guys were making the final table of every World Series of Poker main event in Vegas. I wanted to be one of those guys. So
Right.
I mean, there was so much bad info in that movie, but it was actually pretty true. When you look back at like all the poker movies, I feel like Rounders actually is still the best one. I think it's held up, but maybe it had something to do with studying for finals in law school and seeing a movie about a guy who dropped out of law school to go play cards, and
Right.
I felt like it hit me. I wanted to be Mikey McD. I wanted to go and hit up a professor for a $10,000 loan, and just put it all on a game that's definitely crooked that I shouldn't be playing, and it called to me. What can I say? My dream right now is for Brian Koppelman to actually do Rounders 2, and I think that it would start with Mikey McD driving an Uber and dropping somebody off at the Bellagio. And listen, here's the thing, I really should be going to the airport right now, but I just can't help myself. He parks his car and like walks in and sits down at the 1-3 game, and something amazing happens. But that's as far as I've gotten, and I've been thinking about it for 20 years. So hopefully, Brian Koppelman
at this pace. Oh, that's super awesome. And kind of one of the things that you kind of glossed over in there was that you're starting like your third year of law school at age 18. Like, so you were sort of I don't know if an educational prodigy is the right way to say it, but you went through college really young. Oh yeah,
Brian Koppelman ruined me. Just like when you think about all these kids who got into poker from Rounders, I mean, he ruined us. It's amazing. You don't really know how the work you do is going to influence people. And the fact is, these movies, they really change lives. They really do. I don't know about you guys. I'd be curious to know what you guys think. Like, if there's one movie that completely changed your life for better or worse, I mean, what would that movie be? Is there anything that you can think of?
Hey, we ask the questions around here. I've got one, but you guys are all going to think I'm a sap, so I'll share because I don't care. But like, there's a movie called About Time, like that just ruined me. It like changed my perspective on life. Yeah. Like learning how to live every day so you don't have any regrets and you don't want to have to try to relive it. You just say, I'm going to wake up today. I'm going to get everything I can out of this day. And Steve, that has changed me.
I loved that movie. For your listeners who don't know, that's a movie about a time lord who can go back and relive moments, and he uses this superpower gift to go back and trick a girl into liking him. It's a beautiful, beautiful movie.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like, and I'm sitting there watching it with like my wife and my son, the Time Lord. But yeah, no, it's fantastic. What about you guys? What do you got out there, Jim? You're muted right now, Jim, or it's really quiet for some reason. He must be sharing his audio still. I'm waiting for the Rec Poker theme song to come up. Well, Jim figures that out. Oh, there he is.
A little better.
You, yeah.
The same vein, but
your audio is. Oh, there it is.
Oh.
Oh, it's too bad, man. I know he's got something super exciting to say. It's probably like Strange Brew is probably Jim's favorite Canadian movie of all time. But no, I think you're right. I mean, like maybe you're saying you sort of stumbled upon this movie. It was just what are the odds sort of thing. You saw it. How would life be different if you hadn't stumbled into the theater that night and watched it? So it's crazy how life kind of works that way.
Yeah, no doubt.
So tell me a little bit now. We started in Minnesota, the Rec Poker podcast, and we got Tony Lazar is one of the Minnesota guys, and I know he was part of the crew. A lot of our listeners are, recreational players, maybe never heard of the crew. We really don't know what that was. Talk a little bit about the heydays of that deal. Whatever you would like to share.
I don't exactly know how it all happened. So 2003, I win my way into the main event, I'm 22 years old. I just finished working as a prop up in Garden City in San Jose. That was my first real poker job, I guess. And did that for a few months, then toured the trail for a few months. Now it's WSOP time, and I pretty much all but went broke, but the very last super satellite for the main event, I buy in and I win a seat, and I don't actually realize back then, that you don't have to play it. I didn't know that. I didn't know that you could, just sit there with the Lammers and, because at the time, I mean, I had, a low 4-figure bankroll, I mean, like $10,000 was way too much money that I should be, exposing myself to. And that's something that, your listeners should know, that if you satellite your way into a tournament that is too big for you to be playing, it's still too big. I just realize that, you don't get to be like, oh, well, I'm going to just, I can't really afford to play the $10,000 main event, but I'm going to try to satellite in. Well, if you do satellite in, it's still too big. It doesn't matter. Whether it's, expected value or real money putting in, it should be the same thing. I didn't know that.
I always tell people, like, it's a separate decision, right? You now have the $10,000, so you're making the decision to play it. Like, even though there's this free roll concept, it's still like it's a separate decision now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, lucky for me, I didn't know that, because I'm in. I'm in the main event, the very first table. I'm sitting around, and there's David Skolansky and TJ Cloutier at my first table. I like both of these guys who wrote the book on poker, and I'm playing and I'm holding my own, and I end up doing pretty well. Day one, have like that was back when they'd start you with 10,000 chips. So after day one, I think I had like 30 something thousand, maybe 40,000 in chips, which was pretty good. After day two, I was cruising. I was in the top 10. And then after day three, I ended day three with the chip lead. And, back then it was, I don't really feel like it was that different of a game, to tell you the truth. I mean, there's more information out there about how to play now than there ever was. And there's certain things that, you didn't really see too much back then. You didn't really see a lot of 3-betting without just monster hands. And people weren't really opening without decent hands. You wouldn't really see the 7-5 offsuit opens. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, I had spent a lot of time with this program called Mask. What was it? The World Series of Poker Mask software. This is very old school, back in the mid 90s, where the program was, you'd like get off of a plane and you'd walk over to Bellagio and you'd play the main event. And I played through this program so many times that, what worked in the program worked in real life. Open light, 3-bet light, and push hard until you start getting pushed back. And that was really what it was all about. It was like this aggressive. But then when you start feeling, the door kind of coming back and giving you resistance, that's when you kind of have to let off. And there were there were a few people who I was playing with that year who were really good at just being, aggressive, but they didn't learn that trick about, kind of laying back when they were, well, one guy in particular on day two, I remember it was up against Lyle Berman. And this guy was just so aggressive, and he was just raising. Anytime he was on the button or the cutoff or we didn't have a name for the hijack back then, but what was the hijack? He was raising if it was folded to him. And there was one hand that went down where I remember he fired out a big bet pre-flop, and Lyle Berman called him, and then he fired out a big bet on the flop where it was like 9 high, and Lyle Berman called him. And on the turn, he just piles it in. Yeah, it is like, it was way too much. It was about 40, 50 big blinds just shoving all in, and Lyle snap calls, and this kid turns over king queen offsuit, absolutely nothing except king eye, and Lyle turns over pocket kings, and that kid, he was aggressive. He made it through just by like, I wonder what he's doing now. I wonder what he's doing now. So day 3, I end with the chip lead. Day 4, we go in. ESPN cameras are all over the place, and I end up bluffing off a huge amount of my stack, which at the time was a chip lead, to Chris Moneymaker, and then kind of come back a little bit and then dust off the rest to Sammy Farah, and end up finishing 12th. So went from low 4 figures to an $80,000 score, and it was awesome. And I had been hanging out with a few other poker players that I felt like had a lot of talent there in Vegas, and I kind of had this idea with these guys to try to start a little group boy band of poker, I guess. And so we went to LA and we started playing the tournament circuit. And I remember it was pretty cool. Max Shapiro was the one who actually gave us the name The Crew, and because we didn't really have a name. But the very first tournament we all went to go play, two of the other guys, Brett Youngblood and Joe Bartholdi, ended up coming in first and second, and it was a hustler tournament. First and second, it was like 300-400 players deep, and it just felt like everything was clicking, and we were going to just crush everything. And for a while, it looked like we were going to. That next year, Scott Fishman, he ended up getting 2 bracelets, and Brett Youngblood won a bracelet. I came in second in a Raz tournament, and Joe Bartholdi came in third in I think a no limit event. And ESPN did these nut segments, and so they did this segment on The Crew, and it was like a 2-part thing. So we had like one of I can't remember when they would air, but one week they did half of the Crew, and the other week was the other half. And it kind of captured it, because it kind of captured the imagination of a lot of people, because at that point there weren't a lot of like 21, 22, 23-year-old kids that were really in the game at that point. It was kind of, the young kids at that point were like the Lane Flacks and the Phil Ivies and the Mike Matazaus and Daniel Negroni's, who were a little older, like late 20s, early 30s maybe. And so ESPN was pretty quick to jump on this idea of young kids coming in and dominating it. And so after ESPN kind of watch it, I'll tell you, by the time ESPN did their thing, the Crew was pretty much dissolved at this point. We were clashing and button heads, and sharing bankrolls is never a good idea. It just never is. And this whole idea of the boy band of poker pretty much dissolved before our first single, right? But we're all kind of associated with this. And what ended up happening was the media kind of came along and jumped on it even more than we did. So it was kind of, it was kind of prolonged from this media, kind of this media myth, I guess. And then after ESPN ran their nut segment, and each time any of us would go deep in a tournament, or during the main event, they were following us and kind of playing that up. And later that year, Rolling Stone sent out a reporter to do a big 4, 5, 6-page spread, and that was pretty cool. And then what happened? I went on to continue to win some bracelets.
Yeah, did
Joe
you have
Bartholdi,
bracelets at that point? Did you have bracelets when the Rolling Stone article came out?
No, I was the one who was slacking.
And then you picked up 3 of them after that. So you made up for lost time pretty well there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Chris, did you have something?
Well, I wanted to follow up, since I've been sort of, I think we're all, trying to find things to do in sort of this sort of social distance quarantine life. And I've been going back and rewatching just like the whole span of main events, starting with the Moneymaker 2003 one. Saw a bunch of hands with you on that coverage. And I was wondering, now looking back, whether you had a sense. I mean, obviously it wasn't airing at the same time. It aired later after the things took place. I'm wondering if you had a sense at the time that something was sort of bubbling up there, or was this sort of like a surprise after the fact with the whole Moneymaker effect and the poker boom that followed and your role in that? Did you have a sense that was coming, or was that something that sort of like took you by surprise as well?
Yeah, I would say I had a sense that it was coming, Chris. I remember watching an interview with Mike Sexton a couple of years before, where he had kind of predicted that that poker was going to start becoming this watchable thing. And that Moneymaker year, that was the first time ESPN had come in, because before that it was the Travel Channel. And if anything, I thought that it was going to be bigger than it ended up being. I thought that, I remember back when I was first starting out and, went out and just got all the books I could. Mike Caro had come up with some napkin numbers where he had estimated that 50 million Americans played poker. And so in my head, poker was going to be bigger than any other sport. I really thought that poker had the potential to really be, bigger than basketball and football and, baseball, because everybody can play it. Mm-hmm. And, with online poker, leading things into, the World Series of Poker and the WPT and all of these, things, I really thought that poker had the potential to be even bigger than it ended up being. And I would say that, everyone kind of knew that something big was happening when ESPN starts saying, okay, we're going to put this on. It could have been like, looking back on it, I guess it could have just been a flop. It could have been like the spelling bee every year, it could have been, it could have been like that. I mean, because more than 50 million people spell, so I mean, why couldn't that be like,
not if you read Twitter.
So I don't know. I mean, but I did think that something big was happening. I thought that would start seeing. Start seeing a lot of like sportswear companies and car companies and, Bud Light, coming in and sponsoring people. We have like Scotty Wynn getting sponsored by Corona, and like, I thought that if anything, I thought it would be more of a big deal than it ended up being.
So who would have been your perfect sponsor if things blew up and everybody wanted to sponsor somebody? Who would have been your perfect sponsor at that time?
At that time, shoot.
At that time, and then now, whichever you want to do, I guess.
I'm not even gonna speculate. I don't know. I wish I had something like ready to go for you, Steve, but it just makes me depressed when I think about it. I got all the sponsorship money that was just like being handed out, and I'm like, Senor, please, sir.
Right.
It's got to be Dutch Boy Paint, doesn't it? It's got to be Dutch Boy Paint.
Dutch Boy Paint, yes.
Perfect. Yes, that would have been perfect.
Nice. See, Jones has all the answers. I'm kind of curious, back on the crew thing, but just more on the idea of community, right? We talk a lot about the value of learning in community, the value of having other people to bounce ideas off of and learn together. Fedor Holtz, of course, had his group of people that flourished in that learning environment. You have your group of people that obviously they were good players to start, but went on to win 6-8 bracelets. Talk a little bit about that. Like, how important was that to your development as a player?
I think it's pretty important. I think that I definitely feel like you do see these little groups of players pushing each other to succeed. I don't really feel like the crew was the first one. There were other little groups that had kind of come out. like the group of players who came out of the Mayfair up in New York, with like Seidel and Harrington and Lederer, and you also see like the Tilt Boys with like Andy Block and Phil Gordon and Perry Friedman and Ray First. I think that it is really important. And then after you had the little ship at Halabalas, I mean, look at those guys. Those guys were just sick. They like Tom Dwan, Andrew Roble, Alec Torelli, Tony Dunst, Shannon Shore. I'm missing so many of that whole ship at Halabala group. I know, but like that was an incredible group that just kind of came out of nowhere and crushed. And you get a bunch of people together, and they start sharing ideas, and they start pushing each other to be better. And also it kind of puts you in a situation where you become kind of risk seeking. Like the difference between hanging out in a frat house playing a bunch of poker tournaments versus hanging out at home with a wife and a baby in the next room. You get to a final table, and when you're sitting there at fifth place, like a group of testosterone filled boys is not going to be like, go for fourth, come on, you can ladder up here. It's definitely going to be like, it definitely pushes you to kind of be risk seeking rather than risk averse, and I think that's a big part of it. You're never going to be pushing yourself to those upper echelon levels if you're satisfied with like the mid tier, and that was a big part of it. We always pushed each other and always kind of daring each other to strive for bigger things. Another big part of it, Steve, is apart from all the strategy and apart from all just the improvements that come from being able to bounce ideas off, is just the networking. Because in poker, a big part of it is this metagame of getting backed and getting in the right games, and being able to keep costs low when you're on the road traveling and all of that kind of thing. So if you're sitting here with a crew of guys, you go out to Tunica, Mississippi, you're able to spend, a third of what, other guys are spending on a room, because you actually have some connections, and you're able to get the backing for the 5K or the 10K events that, maybe you wouldn't be able to get if you were just like, trying to go on, some poker forum and say, hey, I'm good.
Right. Trust me, I'm good for it.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's a big part of it, the whole networking part.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that's it. It's strategy, it's networking, relationships, all of that stuff, for sure. John, did you have something that you wanted to ask or add?
Well, at the time, I was just thinking the big miss in the ship at Halaballers is Phil Galfond.
Yeah.
But as far as your experience coming up in that time frame, everyone at that point in time who was watching ESPN wanted to be part of the crew, because it looks way more fun than just about anything looked. And I realized the reality does not match the hype. But as you've matured as a poker player, as you've grown from it, what do you think you've taken from that experience? How has it changed you, or what have you had to mature from them then to be where you are now?
I'm not really sure how to answer that. What have I taken from the experience?
Or let me put it a different way. What that you know now, do you wish you had known then when you were starting your poker career?
I wish that I knew now, like it's something that I know now that I wish I knew back then. I wish that I knew back then that just how feast or famine poker is. When you start out in poker, and this is pretty much true, I think, for every pro. is they hit the ground running. You know, like there's a big survivor bias in poker, where you know you get 200 guys who all have talent, and they all take a shot at some big tournament, and two of them or three of them end up actually doing really well in that tournament, and the rest go off and do something else. And those three think, I'm really good at this thing, and so they continue. But in poker, there's regression to the mean. And that whole sophomore slump, it doesn't mean that those guys aren't good. It just means that they ended up being the ones that got lucky early on. And you see this a lot in poker, where the people who end up trying, actually going for it and actually thinking that they're going to try to make a career out of it, have really good results early on. And it's really, really easy to fall into the trap of thinking that those results are just going to always be there. So I wish that I had known just how not true that was, because it never really occurred to me. Even I would say I still had this attitude 7-8 years into my career, that when I would hit a big score, I wouldn't realize that this really you really had to weather a lot with this. And I also think that also applies to the relationships you have. This whole feast or famine kind of idea is, I wish that I would have realized that the people that you think are important now, most of them are going to be gone. Most of them are going to be gone. And even if they aren't gone from the industry, they're going to be gone from your life in the way that they are right now. There were a lot of times when I would waste way too much money backing players, loaning money to players, and blowing it on parties and clubs. And I wish that I had all that money back. I wish that I realized, because the money that you end up losing just has this huge opportunity cost. When you think about the difference between having like a $50,000 bankroll and a $10,000 bankroll, it just puts you in this spot where you can actually capture these opportunities that come along so much better. I mean, I don't really want to think about it too much, because then I just think about how I wish I would have put all the money that I put into weed for other people into Bitcoin when it was at $5, and then it just kind of makes me feel sick to my stomach. But I wish that I would have, and I know this is kind of messed up, okay, but this is like you asked, and this is the answer. I wish that I would have early on been way more selfish and more focused on hoarding and keeping every single dollar I made, rather than thinking that it would come back to me. You stake a guy and he's going to blow up, and he's going to, stake you. It's all going to come back to you. It doesn't come back to you. It disappears into the wind, and it's gone forever. And then you're sitting here holding it back, like with nothing. And anytime that you actually need help, you're going to go out to those same people, and they're going to be gone. They're going to pick up their phone. They're going to be like, "Oh, sorry, I can't help you." Jesus, it's so irritating. I'm not going to name names, okay? But this is one thing that really irritated me last year. I had made a pretty big prop bet with one of the members of the crew, with a guy that I was pretty tight with at the time. And it was a bracelet bet, long-term bracelet bet. Whoever had the most bracelets after 10 years is going to get a $10K payment from the other. And I beat them all, so I'm winning. I win. And I'm like, okay, I need my money. And he's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, Dutch, I can't pay you right now. It's it's just too much for me to pay you." So at this point, I'm dealing at the win, right? I'm dealing at the win. I'm sitting here dealing 1-3, and I look across the table, and this little jackass sitting here playing a 25-50 no limit game with $80,000 in front of him, telling me that it's inconvenient to pay me my 10 grand. I mean, and this is one of the tightest guys I've ever been with in poker. You can imagine how irritating that is. And so then I get moved. I'm sitting here pushing him $8,000-$9,000 pots. He doesn't even throw a tip my way. And I think, you know what? I should not have paid for your room in Tunica. What I'm thinking is like all the relationships that you're investing in is just not you don't need to you don't need to put money out there and think that that's going to somehow help your status or career or anything, because it's just pissing it away. That's what I wish I would have known early on.
It is
John,
kind of,
go ahead.
well, it's interesting that in poker, so a carpenter isn't going to go to the job and trade his tools for lunch, right? But in poker, your bankroll is your tool set. So it's really interesting that and it's really easy to not keep those segregated. Whereas if you're a carpenter, your tool chest, you can't sell that. You can't do anything with it because it's your livelihood. But with poker, your bankroll is what you need to live off of, but it's also the tools that you need for your job. So it's kind of fascinating to listen to you talk about that. I find that really interesting.
I think there's another element too that I find fascinating is my exposure to the poker community. There's a lot of incredibly generous people, which it sounds like you were, maybe it's jaded you a little bit, but it seems like it is sort of ripe for people to take advantage of that, because I've been doing a lot of nonprofit work with the poker community, and they're always super helpful. Yeah, I'll help you out. I'll help you out. I'll help you out. And it seems like that could be the same thing where people are saying, hey, I need help to get into this tournament or to play this cash game. People are like, yeah, I'll help you out. I'll help you out, because they're really generous. But then if there's lack of integrity, everything kind of implodes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I want to kind of end our time. Obviously, we could go all kinds of different directions. You've got a great story and some things that could really help people. But I want to talk a little bit about Mike Sexton. I'm curious your exposure to him. I think for a lot of us recreational players, we know him from TV. Like, oh yeah, he seems like a nice guy. He knows some things. But as we've talked to people and sort of peeled back the onion, you realize the impact this guy really had in the industry. And I'm curious what your situation is in regard to Mike.
Mike was one of the very first pros I ever played with in Vegas when I came out for the first time, 21 years old, right off the bus, literally off the bus. I took a Greyhound to Vegas, and he was playing the 5-5 PLO game at Binion's with a couple of other players, and that was the first. So he was really the first big pro that I knew. I was starstruck at that point because he had, kind of already made a name for himself. I can't remember when he won his bracelet. Let me look it up here. But I'm pretty sure it was before like 2001, 2002, because he.
Somebody on the panel probably knows that offhand.
Let me find out. W's 2000. No, that was his highest in the money. His bracelet came in 89. So he had already won, and he, anytime like the Travel Channel or anything would kind of do their show, they would always go to Mike because he always had good quotes, and he always was, he always was a big, a great ambassador of the game even back then. So when I was coming up and I went out and got all the Travel Channel episodes of ESPN, not ESPN, of the World Series of Poker, and was just absorbed in it before I really, got started, and before ESPN, before whole card cameras, before all of that. They would always have a segment where they'd have the pros, and Mike was always in that, and he'd always have his bracelet on, and he would always look at it with this reverence, and a big part of that, like that reverence that he took, he'd look at it, he'd say, the bracelet will be there when the money's gone, and it's like, yeah, and he really talked it up like you win a bracelet, you're in this club, and no one can ever take you out of it. That really had a profound effect on me. So I was definitely starstruck the first time I sat down with him. He was really cool. He was not like. There's going to be a lot of people in poker who you're going to feel starstruck to, and then you're going to talk to, and they're going to be douches. He wasn't. He was warm, and he was open and seemed to be genuinely interested in me. And, I got a chance to play with him a lot and got a chance to interact with him a lot, from that point, 18, 19 years, and here was a guy who really saw it coming. Here was a guy who, was really the first pro to think, okay, hole card cameras are going to change everything, and online poker is going to change everything, and we're going to start seeing sponsorship and all this stuff coming into the game. And he capitalized on it. I think before, when I was on the home game, I said something. I said, pretty much every poker player has less money than you think he does, with very few exceptions. Well, Mike was one of those exceptions. Mike had so much money, you wouldn't think that he did from watching him play. He was good. He was a good player, but I mean, he had way more money than people think he would have had, because this guy saw it coming and he capitalized on it. I mean, here's a guy who had little pieces of party and little pieces of the WPT, and this guy, he deserved all the success too, because everybody loved him. And when you look back and see how poker grew, Mike kind of had his hands in every aspect of it, and really, I don't think I ever heard him say a bad word about any poker player, and I don't think I ever heard a poker player say a bad word about him. He really built a legacy that I think is something that everyone should strive for, not just in poker but in life. Because watching the outpouring of support that he had those final days, I mean, I thought it was really touching.
Yeah, incredibly inspiring. Everybody stepping up and saying kind words, and I think you can tell. I mean, usually when people pass, everybody tries to say nice things, but sometimes you can tell. It's sort of like actually, this stuff seems legit, genuine.
It's funny. There's that quote, "Death makes angels of us all," right? Who said that? Exactly. Well, I don't know. Jim Morrison is credited, but I think it might have been before him. And it reminds me of Chad Batista, right? When Lil Hold'em online, when he died. And I don't remember Chad ever saying a good word about anybody. And all he was doing every single time we were playing, he'd be at the bar and just talking shit about everybody. And then he'd go off on these drunk episodes where he'd go on someone's Facebook and talk all sorts of shit about them. He went on my Facebook one time, called my girlfriend a little Asian man boy. And I was like, that's kind of uncalled for. And then he ends up drinking himself to death. And all of a sudden, everyone's like, oh, I loved him. He was such a good person. I was like, he wasn't. He wasn't. Like this, but that quote, "Death makes angels of us all," is just true. I look forward to that. Like when I die, I wish that I could watch the Twitter feed, because there's going to be so many people coming out talking, "Oh, Dutch was the best of us." It's like, no, it wasn't.
I think we'll probably even say nice things about you, when that time comes.
That's just the way it is.
I mean, I think we'll find a way to do it. Yeah, we'll make something up. But no, I mean, but with
Mike Mike deserved it.
So legit. Yeah.
I wish
it just seems so legit.
One good thing, Mike did it right too, even towards the end, right? Because he has Linda Johnson come out and announce that he's about to die. So he gets 2 days of just getting to scroll through Twitter and being like, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. So like that's how you have to do it. If you see your time coming, you got to tell your friend to go ahead and make the announcement, so you get to like enjoy all the accolades that are coming your way.
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
I bet that he had so many people texting him, and I was in that number,
streaming videos,
just letting him know that he's a legend. He meant a lot to us, and we love you. And the whole industry. I mean, like, I can't think of a better way to go. I really can't. We're all going to be there. And I have a feeling that most people are not going to be able to experience that kind of outpouring of support and positivity. It's just, but yeah, death makes angels of us all. He actually deserved it. And right. I don't think that, I can't really think of anybody else in poker who would really kind of deserve that kind of outpouring.
Love it. Well, thanks for sharing that stuff about Mike. And I guess as we wrap up, I want to give you an opportunity, if there's anything, any kind of words of advice or things that you want to share with Rec Poker Nation. You got all these thousands of people that are saying, I play home games, I play bar leagues. Man, Dutch Boyd has 3 bracelets. How cool this guy is, whatever. But any I guess words of advice for poker, life, community, whatever that might be that you want to leave our folks with.
Shoot, words of advice.
I like to put people on the spot. That's sort of the thing I do,
It's call me if you need a lawyer. That's the Rounders quote that I'm using now.
Better call Dutch.
I don't know. You know what? Here's some advice, okay? Best advice I've ever heard in poker came from Melissa Hayden. And it was, don't forget that everybody you're playing are just scared little boys inside. And that's more true than I think you might think. You know, you look at the champions of the game, the best poker players in the world, Phil Hellmuth, right? He's not that much better than anybody in this panel. And that's the truth of it. You know, it's in the end, we're all flawed. We're all human. And it's very much like looking into the jungle and picking out the very smartest gorilla out there. That smartest gorilla is not going to be that much different than the average gorilla. And that's how it is in poker. And, you know, all of these guys who, you know, have just seem to crush everything that they touch, just keep in mind, you know, that there's just not that much of difference between where you are and where they are. Chances are you're spending more time on your game than they are. That's the truth of it. And, you know, there's so much luck in poker. You know, you said earlier how, you know, it all evens out. It doesn't. It doesn't even out. It really doesn't. You know, there just is, like, there's so much luck in poker, and so much of someone's success is just dependent on things going their way. And at the end, when they do, you look back on it and think, oh, I was so good, you know, nailed it.
Yeah.
So don't get discouraged, and don't ever feel outclassed. You know, if you do find yourself in a situation where, you know, you are where you have an opportunity to take something big in poker, you know, you're going to find yourself in these situations, and it'll be like a once or twice in a lifetime thing. You know, realize that one advantage that you can have over anybody else at the table is trying to be present. You know, and if you find yourself heads up for a bracelet against Phil Hellmuth, or on day one of the main event against Phil Ivey, you know, you can have an advantage by staying present in the moment, picking up everything that you can, and treating it like it's the most important thing you've ever done. Because Ivey's not going to be treating it like it's the most important thing he's ever done. You know, and, you know, being able to really just hunker down, you know, stay in the moment, trying to just freeze time, you know, and take it, you know, like stay in that moment and absorb everything and treat it like it's the most important thing you've ever done. That can really be a big advantage when you find yourself in those spots, especially if you're one of these guys, you know, who are coming at it from, you know, if you're like one of the Darvin Moons of the world, you know, who, you know, coming in and, you know, now you have this opportunity. And, you know, that's another guy I'll miss in poker. I played with him way less than Mike, but I was there when he got second to Joe Catta. And I could tell you, Joe Catta is an amazing player, but Joe Catta got all in for all of his chips at that final table at least 4 times with an under pair versus an over pair. At least 4 times. You know, that's 15% to survive. And you parlay that 4 times. That's what he had to do to get through. Now Catta has 3 bracelets and Darvin Moon has a second place, and that's where they're at. Where would Darvin Moon be if Catta hadn't been able to pull off that 4-hand parlay and Darvin actually wins the thing? You know, I mean, so much of poker success is just built on prior results, you know, and being able to win that main event, all of a sudden Darvin gets a sponsorship. Instead, Catta gets the Stars sponsorship. You know, but if Darvin got the sponsorship, and now he's being sent to play all the WPTs and WSOPs, and he's the one who's getting to rub shoulders with all of these other players who, you know, are bantering and talking about ideas, and it's just so weird. Yeah. You know, Cat is an amazing player. You know, but you know, just don't ever feel outclassed when you're playing against the Joe Cattas, because from where I was sitting, and I watched it happen, from where I was sitting, Darvin Moon played a better game. You know, it's just, you know, the fact is that poker does not, you know, reward the best player at the table. It rewards the player where everything goes their way. So,
well, good. I think that's good advice for poker. Good advice for life. keep all that stuff in mind, man. Dutch Boyd, thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate that so much.
Thanks for having me on. Really enjoy it, Steve. Really enjoy hanging out with the Rec Poker crowd here. So
all right, well we'll have you back at some point.
Keep on doing the
for
good
sure.
work.
All right, thanks. Well, we're gonna keep going on, do a little housekeeping stuff. Feel free to jump off, and we'll be in touch. But once again, thanks, and we'll have you on some of our Zoom meetings again, and we'll get you back on the podcast.
Anytime, Steve. Thanks, guys.
All right, take care,
Thanks,
man.
Dutch.
All right, guys. So what do we think? What kind of reaction do we have?
Definitely likes answers questions thoroughly.
Yep.
You know.
Yeah, for sure.
I think he brings a realistic expectation to what being a poker pro is all about. I think we saw that in our online play and hang last Wednesday. He talked a little bit about that. And you know, that concept of, 100 people get into a tournament and then 2 people, get first and second, and all of a sudden they're the best players in the world. And, Joe Cotta could have been gone out 100th because his pocket aces got busted.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between, who's the good players and who are the bad players. And that analogy he had, or that story he had, where, these guys all came out and they're all about equal, talent,
Mm-hmm.
talent-wise equal, and they get into a tournament and a whole bunch of them, make some money and the rest of them don't. And all of a sudden the ones that made money are now poker pros and everybody knows who they are. And are they that much better than the other guys that got their aces cracked or whatever happened to them that didn't allow them to get to that big moment on that one stage? So I think that realistic viewpoint is very refreshing because I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Mm-hmm. And that can be both inspiring as well as frustrating, right? To know that that variance is an issue with a single hand, but over the course of the whole thing, like you and I, Chris Jones and I we're gonna have a contest. We're gonna see who's the best at flipping heads on a coin, right? All right, let's each flip it 20 times. Who's better at it? And you flip it 13, I flip it 7, and all of a sudden you're way better at flipping heads. Oh man, I wish I was as good as Jonesy. I mean, poker obviously there's a skill piece too, but there's so much variance in there that it can be like something to keep in mind. Like, okay, I'm right there. They're not that much better, but also it can be frustrating because you just know that queen is coming against your aces.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember if it was David Sklansky or Mike Carroll, but one of the two said something along the lines of, poker will always even out in the long run, and you'll approach your expected value, but a person's lifetime may not be long enough to achieve that. And that's particularly true when they were talking about live poker. I think with online, you can get a lot more hands in, so it's a little different.
So true. Well, anything else? Any other feedback from Mr. Dutch Boyd?
Am I getting any audio through? Can you guys hear me?
You're good. We can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, man. All right. Well, one thing I'd recommend to Dutch Boyd is you got to see the movie Pool Hall Junkies. If you liked Rounders, you will love the movie Pool Hall Junkies. It's not as good, but it's about billiards instead of poker. Go check it out and then thank me later.
So are you saying that if he would have watched that instead of Rounders, he would be a professional pool player right now?
I don't know.
Nice.
You would have been tempted.
I want a quick show of hands because this is blasphemy. I don't love Rounders. I've watched it a couple times and I'm like, the poker isn't very good. Like the guy just opens to 10x in the last scene, and like it doesn't do anything for me. Even though I feel like I need to watch it because it's called classic. But
yeah, but
I know it's blasphemy. But go ahead.
When did you first see it? Because like I agree, it's actually not a very good movie. But
yeah,
I think,
maybe only 5 years ago I saw it.
Yeah, see, I mean, I think you can't. It had to be like
part
that
of your
moment
poker story
before poker even had any like popular culture, any kind of public the only thing people knew about poker before Rounders was old west style shoot 'em sort of narratives in movies.
Maverick.
And this was a movie that Maverick, exactly. And this was a movie that like at least tried to take the poker seriously. Now it's an enormously flawed movie, and I actually I tried to rewatch it and I almost couldn't. I tried to rewatch it this year and I was like,
that same here.
Oh my god, this is bad. but it was monumental at the time, and I think we forget how much that movie changed I mean, it was before Moneymaker, it was before that, but it was the first thing that I think brought poker into pop culture in a really big way. And I think
I
it was
think that's a
important
really
because
good
of that.
point.
Yeah.
I look at
if it was part of my story, but it wasn't really part of my poker story. Rob, sorry.
I think it's the story is more important than the actual poker that you're seeing. It's the story of what was going on in his life and
But
what.
it's so frustrating.
But remember, this was 1998.
I know, but cut this guy off.
But
But he was winning. He wins. He lost his bankroll. So here's the thing. I was, 12 when it came out, but I didn't really see it until I was 15, 16.
Oh, I was 12 when it came out.
Yeah, well, you know what? But I mean, so I was already playing a little bit of poker before I saw it, but then this really got all of my friends to play. And then we, kid you not, we played 2 nights a week when I was in high school. Don't want to talk about it. It probably wasn't the best idea. But anyway, that kind of propelled my group of friends into more of a poker mindset. I had already played a little bit. My family's always played a ton of cards. But that, it is flawed. It is a flawed movie. But the story itself about how, you can come from nothing and just be a Joe Schmo and still beat the best. And that's the whole thing. It's like what Boyd was saying is anybody can play poker. You don't have to be 6 feet tall and be able to jump, 3 feet to dunk in the NBA.
Right.
Like you do in the NBA. Anybody can play poker. Not everybody can play it well. But that's kind of what launched, at least my group, going to 15, 16, 17 into high school. That's kind of how I got my love of poker. I had already had it, but this got my group and my community of friends to play.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Rob, I think I cut you off earlier when you were talking.
No, I was just saying it's just the story. It's just the story. You have to understand that back then there wasn't that much studying going on when it came to poker. So 10x might have been a normal open. Who knows? In today's world, we're looking at 2.2 to maybe 3. If somebody opens 5, you go, what the hell's wrong with him? That's today. But back in '98, that wasn't a concept. People weren't talking that way. I mean, some of the terms that we use when we talk about poker hands today, they weren't even using those terms then. So you got to look at it more as the story than looking at it and trying to critique the poker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, John.
There's a lot about that. Well, first, it is probably, despite all its flaws, it's the most accurate poker movie ever made. And if you look at the game and the player interaction, it's pretty good. And you have to remember, as Rob was saying, 10x, the rules or the sophistication we have now, it's evolved over a long time. When I was learning to play back in 2000, there were lots of people who argued that you should be opening for 5x, and if you ever opened for less than 3x, that was just heretical. There's no point in doing that. And now, so the game has evolved a lot since then. So you can't look at the individual plays, and a lot of it was, based on stud and other games, not just Hold'em, which is what everyone is playing now. But it's a game. I probably watched the movie 10 times, and I love it. But it's because of the feel of the game, and it's got kind of that romantic, seedy feel for poker, which is kind of interesting because I don't like being in seedy places at all, but yet I still kind of like that romantic feel of it.
Yeah.
So it's one of my favorites, but I know other people don't necessarily feel the same way.
Well, it kind of shows a different aspect of the underground games and kind of stuff, because there's a lot of those that are in Minnesota. If you guys have seen any kind of Twitter stuff going on, there's a lot of home games and stuff, so it kind of brings a different aspect of that. But what I like is that the movie focuses so much on Hold'em, but it's actually they play a lot of other games in there too, which is really cool in my opinion. But the Cadillac of poker is what they say. but he is a mixed game player, and that's part of what drove me to, we played past the deck and stuff too. So that was.
Well, somehow I turned this into a review of the movie, but it was good. I've been meaning to bring this up for a long time, so I'm glad to get your perspectives. I think that is a good perspective. I think the romantic feel of it, I think it's not part of my story. And I think for me, I just, I consider myself very loyal. Like any of you guys, somebody comes after you, I'm going after them. Like I'm loyal, but like this is next level loyal. Like if you guys take my bankroll, keep screwing me over, and I'm getting beat up every other Friday, like it's over. Like I'm cutting you off. So I struggle with that much loyalty between those guys. So anyway, but yeah, good stuff. Good discussion. Jim, go ahead.
Pool Hall Junkies, final word, has a much better soundtrack. Pool Hall Junkies. Soundtrack.
Is it Canadian or what? What's the big push here?
Pushing hard.
I really like it. It's not even a very good movie, but you'll love it.
Thanks.
Kind of getting off of the Rounders topic, I just want to bring up again how no matter who we talk to, no matter who you hear, always great things to be said about Mike Sexton. So I mean, just from anybody we've talked to, anybody you see, anything, even on Twitter, everybody has nothing but positive to say. And
it feels so safe to ask that question. Like I'm not worried about it. Hey, so what do you think of Mike Sexton? Like if some people passed, I'd be a little more nervous. Like I should do some background here before I figure out if I should ask them what they think. But yeah, good point, Andrew. Beloved across the entire industry.
Just one last thing for people who want to hear more about Dutch Boyd. In 2014, he wrote a book, Poker Tilt, and he's gone through. And we only touched maybe 2% of his overall story. So if you want to listen to more of it and hear more of what he has gone through in his poker career and his life, it's a pretty good book.
Yeah, I look at his website too. His website needs some work, but like he's got the book out there. Well, it does. Go up there, you'll see what I'm saying. But the book, it's like he starts the introduction of the book saying, describing, he says, this is a weird book. So yeah, I think it's more about his life and some of his struggle and some of those things. So yeah, go check it out. Interesting, very compelling story for sure. Well, let's shift gears here. And John, since you got have the platform, I guess, why don't we start with you? What's going on in Rec Poker Nation?
Well, if you remember from last week, we had a little bit of a mix-up with the TOC. Someone, I don't recall who, accidentally scheduled it for the wrong day. And then, so we had to play 2 TOCs back-to-back.
Asterisk.
Yep. On September 14th, the actual TOC day. So no asterisk associated with this. On September 14th, we had Kelly S. 196220. Kelly Stork won her very first nightly TOC.
Nice one.
And she was on a call with us, I think the plane hang, where she said afterwards she was literally getting up and jumping up and down and screaming at the top of her lungs. I mean, that's the type of passion that we really want to see from our rec poker community.
Her husband was like, what's going on? She's like, I just won the free home game.
Yeah. How much did you win? I won a pin.
Silver pin.
Right, yes. Yeah, that was a big one.
Not real silver.
Oh. Faux silver.
It's the color. It's just the color.
Anyway, then on September 14th, Mile High Magic Man David Phillips got his second nightly series victory. Graphic 16 Roger Shute got his 6th nightly series victory.
He's got a silver pin too. I think he got the first one.
He's got the first one.
Yep.
Ooh, tough to beat.
Absolutely. He's one of the top front runners now. Ran X99, who put his name as new guy when he signed up to the home game. So that's the only name I have. I'm sure it's not real. Got his first nightly victory. I'm assuming it's a guy, him. Michael Babker got his 4th nightly series victory. Binkley Eric Jin, 3rd nightly series victory.
Gotta stop inviting Eric. He's just crushing these.
Absolutely. Yeah. Flying Bricks, Sarah Hansen, an impressive 5th nightly series victory win. And Mr. DZZ18, I think I also had his name in here last week. Richard Dietz got his 3rd nightly series victory.
Nice.
Then Binkley Eric Jin won his 2nd OPA game. And Fergie56, Kim Kilroy got her first international series win.
And it is
I
international
know.
because Kim's coming down from Canada, eh? Another one of these Canadian champions we're bringing in to take over. Hashtag border battle.
Yeah, let's get those Europeans and Australians in there. Let's make that the legitimate international series.
Legitimate. I hear another asterisk coming.
The minute you cross the border, it's international. Come on.
Awesome. Well, good stuff. Good stuff, John. Anything else on that deal?
No, just be sure to sign up and play.
Love it. Love it. And the internet, like you mentioned, the international series, we're just giving it some time to kind of see what's out there. So 5 a.m. Central, noon Central on Friday. Chance to win a series. We're not giving away the pin or whatever, but you do get a TOC invite for that. So nice small fields right now to try to capitalize on. So take advantage of that deal. All right, who else we got? Who's next? Anyone? Bueller? I'm not going to call on you because you're going to say, it's not my turn. Anybody have anything else to share?
We do have Learning with Partners Wednesday at 6:30 this week. We do have that.
It's on the 23rd, though, right? So we're a week behind now on our recording.
Oh, yes. So, it's on
so as you're listening to this, you missed Learning with Partners.
You can always catch up with the archive posts. So.
Yeah,
Let's do it this way. The book study is the first and third Wednesday of each month, and Learning with Partners is the second and fourth Monday or Wednesday of each month.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Good job, Rob.
In short, go to rec.poker, look at the
Exactly.
events calendar, sign
And
up for Swerp.
If there's 5 Wednesdays in a month, we're going to do something different on the
You've been listening to
Wednesday.
Jim. Jim's got this thing all figured out every day.
I love that. Rob's been reading my mail. Yes, sir. That's exactly it. Thanks, Rob.
Jim and I had a 4-hour meeting today, and like half the time it's me saying, okay, so what are we doing on the third Wednesday? What are we doing? No,
So just keep in mind, any Wednesday at 6:30, there's something going on.
There you go.
Rec Poker. Check on the website, find out what it is. Join us if you can, because we're having a good time.
There you go.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I got a couple other things, and then we'll see if you guys have anything else. But I mentioned at the beginning a couple of things. One of those is Discord. So you guys are out on Discord. We're doing some things out there. It's kind of fun. It's more of a real-time chat thing. We did add a couple of voice channels out there. What that means, even for old people like me, I learned how to do this. Rob, you might be able to figure this out too.
I doubt it.
Andrew's born with this in his hand. But basically what it means is, you can go out there and you can text, but these voice channels, you can just jump on there anytime. They're open 24/7. We have one set up for the home games, one set up for the NFL. So if somebody else is out there, obviously somebody has to be the first person. If you're hanging out at a home game, go out there and click on the voice channel, and somebody else joins. You can chat. You can also then jump to video if you want as well. Same thing if you're sitting around, you want to chat NFL with some of Rec Poker Nation, you can do that. So that's kind of a fun thing to do. But Jim, I'm going to go ahead and mention this too, if that's all right with the OPA. So right now we've been doing this Tuesday night OPA thing for anybody can jump on there. That's moving to Discord because we want to be able to offer that 24/7. So any tournament, anytime, use Discord, jump in there. Different people will be in there. We can chat. The Wednesday night thing that people love for premium members. So once a month, we've been doing this OPA invitational thing. If you're a paid member, we come on there, and then we got some of these pros come on and say hi or whatever. People are just eating it up. Like I get so many messages the next day. Oh my God, so it's so fun. Ryan LaPlante, Moneymaker, Matt Hunt, all these guys. So we're going to actually make that a weekly thing every Tuesday night. So it's not going to be a separate tournament anymore. It's just going to be every Tuesday during the regular tournament. If you are a paid premium member or part of the Wrecking Crew, you can jump on this Zoom thing. And we're going to every week just invite some special guests to come on and hang out with us. So it's just a great way to kind of build that community of premium members. So hopefully that made sense. I feel like I was kind of rambling there, but Jim will correct me or somebody else can correct me. But that's the deal. So any home game, you don't need to be a premium member. Jump on Discord, join the chat. Tuesday nights, paid members, join the Zoom link that's available in the members area, and we'll have special guests hopefully every week. Those are
And
the
sometimes
announcements
even
I
a
have.
special little prize or something. I think Ryan LaPlante was in there a little while ago.
Wow.
He gave away a free month of training
Yep.
to learn pro poker. So premium members do come and show up every Tuesday. You never know who's going to show up, and you never know what they're going to have in their little bag of goodies. So come along down on Tuesday.
Nice. Good point. Good point. All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to share?
I'll just add that in terms of member content, October is all about multi-way play. We inserted that in because that was a request that people had about how do I play hands multi-way. So we actually changed up our schedule a little to sort of insert this. We're listening to you, and we're getting ready for that seminar coming up in October.
Love it. And if you have not watched any of these seminars, you need to. Like, they're so good. Chris Jones is a genius putting them together. The panel discussion is fantastic. Rabbit holes, as we like to say, but just really, really good discussion. So I can't encourage you enough to check these out. It's fantastic content. Anything else, guys? Anybody got anything? Looking around, scanning. All right. Well, with that, just go to rec.poker, check it out there. Sign up for the newsletter. Get a hold of any of us. Steve at rec.poker, always available. Happy to answer any questions. Thanks to our sponsors, Running Aces Racetrack, Casino, and Hotel, website AMP, Learn Pro Poker. Thank you to Dutch Boyd and to the panel, Rob Washam, John Somsky, Andrew Feist, Chris Jones, and the amazing Jim Reed. Signing off for now, and we will catch you next time. Adios.